Alright there guys, LazyBeast here, I hope you're doing well today. Now what we're going to talk about today is basically how to get into raiding in World of Warcraft. Now this is going to be quite a comprehensive but straight to the point guide of how to get into raiding. If you've never done a raid before, or if you've done a raid and it didn't go very well for whatever reason, this guide will hopefully help you feel more confident, more prepared to get stuck back into raiding and be successful. So with that said, let's just jump straight into the video. Now before you even start thinking about raiding, what you should do is have a look at the boss guides on external websites. So this is not even in the game yet. Look at the boss guides. There's guides on Wowhead, there's guides on lots of different websites. There's YouTube video guides from, say, Fat Boss, for example, or Ready Check Pull. There's quite a few different ones. If you just search for example, Castle Nathria, normal or heroic boss guides, then you'll find a lot of things there. Do whichever works for you. You might find it better to read the abilities, on a website, or you may find it better to actually see the boss fights in action, or you may prefer both. Do whatever's best for you until you feel comfortable that you understand what's going to be happening on each of the bosses. Now, to go and sit there and to research basically an entire raid worth of bosses is a lot of work, and you're probably not going to remember everything at all, so maybe just focus on, say, the first 3 bosses of the raid. Now what you need to do is pay particular attention to what actually matters to your specific role, so where you need to be positioned and if you need to spread or stack at certain times. If you're a healer, pay attention to what needs to be dispelled or not dispelled and things like that. Next up, as part of your preparation, is to think about your user interface, so you definitely want to get yourself either Deadly Boss Mods, which is commonly known as DBM, or Bigwigs. Now these are add-ons that will basically shout at you and alert you of raid mechanics. And they'll tell you what to do. For example, this ability is coming up, so you need to stack together. So that means you just got to stand on each other in the raid. Or this ability is targeted on you, so you need to run away. It'll tell you what to do, and it'll just keep you super aware and alert during each boss fight. Both DBM and Bigwigs are very similar, but some people prefer one over the other, so try one for a bit. I recommend DBM, that's what I use personally. But if you don't like the sound of that, or you don't like the feel of it, if you're already using it, then try Bigwigs and just pick which one suits you best. If the idea of joining a raiding guild suits you and you don't fancy going through LFG, LFG does have its problems, I'll speak about LFG shortly in this guide, then it's a good idea to start looking for a raiding guild. Now, there's a few ways that you can find a guild. I'm going to do a separate video on how to find a guild in World of Warcraft. That'll be coming up soon. So just, start thinking about, do you want to join a guild? Keep your eye out. If there's people advertising that they're recruiting for their guild and you notice that and it sounds like it suits you, then maybe speak to them, see what they've got on offer, see what type of content they're doing. Obviously, if they're raiding a mythic guild, then you're probably not going to want to join that straight away. It's probably a bad idea. So yeah, just keep the feelers out there as you're going through your raiding career. Another important part of preparation is to get your consumables and also your item enhancements. So, make sure your gear's enchanted. That's just a good thing you should do generally anyway. But your consumables, a lot of people will, rightfully so, get annoyed at you if you turn up to a raid and you've not got your food, you've not got your potions, you've not got your flask. Now obviously you don't need to go flasking up for LFR, maybe not even normal sometimes depending on what's going on. Obviously if it's the start of the expansion, then yes, you probably should, just to help everybody out and yourself. But right now, say for example normal, Castle Nathria, you don't need to bother with a flask unless your guild or whoever you're with specifically asks for that, then it's not entirely necessary right now. But saying that, you should have these things in your bags ready, just in case you ever need them. If your group needs that edge, then it's there for you. And it's just polite to come prepared. It's just like turn up to an event, which is bring your own beer with no beer, and you have to scab beer off somebody else. That's just not cool. Don't be that guy. And then just have a little think about your mindset. So obviously you're here to work as a team, to get the bosses down, and to get some loot hopefully at the end. Now the raid isn't there to get you loot, it's you are part of a team. You need to pull your weight. Don't go in there expecting stuff to just be given to you and for it to all be easy, because you're just going to find yourself getting grumpy when things don't go your way, and people are going to get annoyed at you if you're not pulling your weight and you're just being miserable. So get in the right mindset, be helpful, try and keep a cool head if things do go wrong, and be a positive member of the team. Find more success. Now lastly, as part of preparation, consider your role. If you're wanting to tank, fantastic, that's great. Not many people do, but I will say it might be the best thing to learn the fights as a DPS first. Now you can set your loot spec to get tank gear if you want to, if you are going to queue as DPS first, but doing this you'll have a good idea of what you need to do, as you can watch the other tanks and your mistakes won't necessarily wipe the entire raid. Now obviously there's some mechanics that if you do them wrong as DPS you can wipe the raid, but it's more impactful generally if the tank does something wrong, if you position badly, if you don't, lie a certain ground mechanic on the floor exactly where it needs to be, stuff like that, you can really scuff the boss fight. So I do recommend jumping in first as a DPS, maybe even a healer, but obviously a healer's got a lot more pressure and it's a different playstyle altogether. So DPS is what I do recommend for anyone new to raiding. If you are going to heal, make sure you know which abilities you should and should not cleanse, and who is priority for healing, who you should be on. For example, are you the main tank healer, are you the raid healer? And that also ties into like knowing what your class is good at. If your class is really good at spot healing, for example like a paladin, but you're trying to heal the entire raid, you're just going to go really quickly and you won't be able to do any healing. On the flip side, if you're like a resto druid and you're really good at healing the entire raid, like AoE healing, but you're only focusing like regrowths on the tank, then you're not playing your class to its full potential and your raid is going to suffer for it basically. Even as a DPS player as well, just make sure that you're doing the mechanics. Focus on mechanics first and executing the fight as it's meant to be done. Don't just focus on DPS, so don't stand in stuff that you shouldn't be standing in just to get a few more casts out. Someone said to me a while ago when I was first started raiding that a dead DPS is no DPS. Now, just remember that, bear that in mind. Stay alive, you can do damage. It's also important too to understand about target markers and world markers. Now in a raid fight you'll likely be using world markers more, which are where like an icon can pop up on the floor with the light glowy beam, which is going to mark where something should be, or for example where a mechanic should be placed. If it's like a bomb that comes on a player and it will drop in say 10 seconds, you need to run to that world marker and drop it there. Or it might be where you need to explode. If there's like an explosion mechanic on players, you got to run there, and what might happen is it might drop a pool of blood, for example, like AoE on the floor, so that's where that needs to be. So what usually happens is when you enter the boss room, the raid leaders on the tanks and things will put these markers down. They should explain, where you're going. When things are on farm, which is basically where, everyone's cleared like normal Castle Nathria and people are just doing it regular, like weekly for the loot and stuff, they may not explain. So if you're doing LFG, just make sure you kind of understand, make sure you've done your preparation and read the boss guides and things before you go in. Sometimes people do things a little bit differently, so if something happens that you're not sure about, you can just ask, whisper the raid leader, is this boss going to be tanked on skull or whatever, and then you can figure it out from there. Now there's obviously basic things which at this point in the game are usually just common sense to people, but obviously if you've never done this before, if you're new to the game, you're not going to know. This is a chart of the raid markers, the icons, and what they usually refer to. Again, people do sometimes do things a bit differently. You may get like star is sheep or star is moon, for example. But just ask. If there's something that's confusing, then just ask. Remember to just like respect these. So if something is marked for CC, if something's going to be sheeped, do not then go and hit that, because it'll pop out of the CC and then it'll start doing damage again. Particularly important for things like the Shade of Barghast on the second fight in Castle Nathria. Obviously it's just so annoying. You're going to wipe your raid if you don't respect these markers and you don't stick to the plan. The final thing of prep, just make sure your gear is repaired and that you've got some bag space, and then you're good to go. Obviously you've got your food, you've got your flasks, your potions, and then it's time to start the raid. So let's get into that bit. So starting the raid. So this differs if you're in a guild raid group or if you're going to raid through LFR. It's quite a different world. So what I'll do, I'll speak a bit about raiding as a guild first, and then I'll go on to the LFG pug part, which is probably going to be relevant for more people watching this guide. Now, if you're in a guild, it's going to be more straightforward. As long as you've done all your prep, you're pulling your weight, you're going to have a dedicated raid leader there that's, going to be probably experienced. So just make sure that you show up on time, that you're online before the raid starts, you've done all your prep as we mentioned before, you're on the guild's voice comms. People usually just use Discord or, maybe if they're a bit old school, TeamSpeak or something like that. Make your way to the raid before it starts to help summon people. It's just helpful, especially if you're a warlock, because obviously then you can summon from inside the raid as well. And just as the raid goes on, just make sure you listen to your raid leader and follow along and just have fun, basically. Don't be annoying. Make sure you follow all the mechanics. Try not to talk over people, especially when the fights are happening. Try not to be chatting along all the time because it's just distracting. And yeah, just good luck and just enjoy it. Now onto the world of hell. No, I'm just kidding. I'm onto the pugging bit. So again, the same sort of rules apply initially. Make sure that you've done all your prep, and you just sort of need to have a bit of a different mindset on this one. You're going to have to be a bit more patient, right? So just know that it's likely going to be hard to get a group if you've never done a raid before, and people have raid.io now, which are going to check it, and they'll know if you've never done any of the raid bosses before, and that's fine. So what you may want to do, particularly if you're going to LFG things, try doing the bosses on LFR first, so you got a bit of a better understanding, you know how the fights feel, and then when you're queuing, just know that if you're queuing as a DPS, it can be a pretty tough road for a DPS player. So if you're worried or are struggling with pugging raids, then just, you know, don't forget the guild option is there. You're just going to have to put a bit of work in trying to find a guild first, but it is a possibility for everybody. Now, I did mention raid.io. Obviously, people want you to have done the bosses already, but if you've not done the bosses, then you can't, you know, show that you have done the bosses and blah blah blah. It's that silly little paradox thing. So what might be a good idea is if you do some Mythic Plus and stuff first, show that you've, you know, done some of that at least, and that you can do, you know, PvE content decently, then people can at least see that you've got a good, decent Mythic Plus raid.io score, and they'll be more likely to probably invite you at that point. Now, what you want to do is try and sign up on a fresh run at first, because usually you'll find in a raid that the first few bosses of the raid are easier than the last couple of bosses, so you definitely don't want to go and jump into a group that's just doing the last boss. Chances are you won't get invited anyway if you've never done any of the raid before, so you're going to find it easier probably to get into a group at that is just starting off a fresh raid. People definitely get more picky when they just want to do the last boss. You'll probably see groups that advertise like Sire Denathrius, one-shot run, fail as kicked and all that sort of stuff, because even though it may be a bit asshole-ish, they can do that. It's their group. If they're choosing to run the group and that's how they want to run it, then that's up to them, that's fine. So that can be a bit stressful if you're not very confident, so don't go for that. You're just going to find yourself applying and applying constantly to groups, and then it might take ages, and if you do get lucky and get in a group, if you make one mistake, you could get kicked. So, you know, try and do a full run first and do all the bosses, because chances are you're going to need the gear anyway from the bosses, and it's good to get the experience. The more fights you do in the raid, the more confident you're going to be as a raider, and the more you're going to learn, the more you get used to like the lingo that people use and like the routes and things. And then obviously if you're thinking of tanking or healing, you can pick up on tips from the other guys there. You can see what they do and, you know, exactly how they perform, and then learn as you go. So start signing up for normal runs, keep your fingers crossed. You can send a message to the group leader saying what your role is, for example. If you're a class, it could be ambiguous, like a druid, you could be a DPS balance or feral, so usually like balance is more preferred, so you can message the raid leader saying, you know, a balance druid, blah blah blah. Or you can try and be helpful and say things like, you know, you're already at the raid, so you can help summon. That could get you invited, because obviously it's showing that you're keen and that you're switched on. Check the notes of the groups too, so they may want a specific class and that could be you. So for example, if they want a druid for a battle res, then, or a mage to get a bloodlust, or a shaman for example, then go ahead and sign up and you're more likely to be invited if you were the class that they're looking for. Now pub groups can be pretty messy at times. Like, people usually leave after each boss fight generally, because a lot of the time people are going in there just for like specific items from a specific boss. So get used to people leaving and having to re-queue and find more members after every boss fight. Sometimes, you know, you might get lucky and get in a group where people are quite happy and want to do a full clear, but that's quite rare. So get used to waiting around for people to rejoin the group after each boss fight. Be helpful where you can, you know, speed boost people as they join, running through, help people summon new people into the raid. You know, it's all going to help speed things up. Now, if you get a group where the raid leader isn't particularly leading the group, not being very helpful, and if you do know what you're doing eventually, and you've got a good understanding of the fights, if you've done them a few times, then, you know, start being helpful. Start, if, you know, you can help the group. If you've got new people in there that don't know what they're doing, that maybe haven't read the guides, then you can refer to the guides if that's you know, if you've got time, if you're waiting for people to join the group, or you can just post quick little snappy summaries of the boss and what to do in the raid chat, because it's just as you would find like back in school. If you know, someone asks a question and everyone assumes that everyone knows, what you might find is there's like 6 people that don't know the answer. So if you're the guy that actually says the answer, then people will probably be like breathing a little sigh of relief, thinking, oh, I'm glad someone said that because I didn't know. No, you can be that guy and you can be that positive, you know, member of the team. So yeah, for any LFG raiders, the hardest part could be actually getting in a group in the first place. Once you're in there, as long as you do everything that you can, you know, help clear trash, be a good group member, use your potions, and obviously make sure you got your food buff all the time. And yeah, just go in there, good luck, just have fun, enjoy it, learn from your mistakes, because you will make mistakes. It could be helpful to record your footage as you're going through it, and then you can, you know, watch that back afterwards and think, oh, I should have moved over there at that time. That can be really helpful. And yeah, just good luck. So there we go. That is a relatively quick, hopefully, sort of summary on how to get into raiding and what you should be thinking about and learning as you go. And I hope that does help. It can be quite daunting getting into your first raid, but just go for it. It is very rewarding, and you know, downing bosses sometimes when you've struggled for it is such a good thing. It gets the adrenaline going. It's probably one of the best parts about PvE in World of Warcraft. So I really hope you enjoy yourself and that this has helped. Thanks for watching, guys. I've been LazyBeast. Catch you next time. And if you've enjoyed this, please do leave a like and consider subscribing for more World of Warcraft guides. Cheers, guys. Take care.